Thank you for joining me this afternoon, but of course you should be celebrating because it's now a privatized airline. Why look back at the past and what's happened? Let's focus on the future. Don't you agree?
Well, of course we have to focus on the future, but, you know, Minister Gordon has, in the past, shrouded this deal in secrecy and said that whenever asked for transparency, that this is very sensitive information. Now he's issued a very generalized statement, and the generalized statement points to no particular signed agreements. There are many questions which need to be asked. We need to know, in terms of the PFMA, how was this arranged and how was this signed off? If someone has been given 51% of a state-owned enterprise, i.e. SAA, on what terms and under what process has this been done? Who are these people? Some of them in the consortium have, to put it mildly, a little bit of a tainted past. We need to understand how those particular bridges were crossed and why they were crossed. Who will benefit? Why will they benefit? Lift is part of this. How will they deal with their own conflict in terms of their own low-cost airline? Or there are a number of questions here.
Sure, Mr.
around
Cachalia.
the funding.
Yes, you've got the right questions. So let's ask, do you have suspicions that are leading you to these questions, or they're just, you know, general, honest inquiries that you'd like answers for?
Well, of course, they're honest inquiries which you'd like answers for, but they are shrouded, given the government's track record in this regard, in a bunch of suspicions. If someone has been if an entity has been gifted something, as it appears to be, because we don't have particular detail without transparency, then we want to know under what circumstances this is happening. Has process been followed? Who are these people? Some of them, as I say, have got dubious track records. We need to understand this. We need to understand where the money's coming from, whether that's going to be just another conduit from the PIC effectively through government monies, which effectively come from us as taxpayers. These are very important questions. They're about process, they're about probity, and they're about the future going forward.
So when are you going to get those answers? Are you able to ask to be able to see the agreement? How quickly can you do that? I mean, you have a role in Parliament. Surely you must be able to ask for this with urgency.
We will ask with urgency. We will pose questions. But history in the past shows that when you ask questions, you get an obfuscated answer. We need clear answers. The government cannot continually obfuscate and take us down some garden route which says we know what's right and we're doing it. Hey, hallelujah, we've privatized. Privatized on what basis? To whom? What are the terms and conditions? Who are the beneficiaries? Are we as taxpayers going to pay for it? Have government guarantees of almost 20 billion rands for SAA been withdrawn? These are very pertinent questions, none of which have been answered. We just get a blanket statement that we've got a private equity, we've got a private sector involvement here, and everything is fine. Well, you know what? Apart from the probity of the process, there's the question of whether this albatross will fly. Because
all right, so we're going over the same ground, and that's a very interesting expression, whether this albatross will fly. We should get, obviously, SOE Minister Pravin Gordhan in here to answer most of those questions, which we'll work on doing. I mean, our producers are listening to this, and we'll make sure that that happens. But let me ask you to just think about scenarios for a short while. One of the things, for example, that's come into my head, it's a 51% stake. Usually special resolutions are required for certain strategic decisions. We know that the government believes certain routes are important strategically. They don't really care about whether they're profitable. I wonder whether that will start to influence the decisions the private operator is going to be making. We don't have answers, but, I mean, do you have a view?
Well, you know, as far as routes are concerned, SAA had 30 routes in the past, 8 of which were profitable. Now, of course, if someone gifts you a bunch of routes, you're going to say, hallelujah, I'll work with these routes. But the point is, how are you going to turn this to profit? It's very telling that there are no particular global players involved, as in airlines, in this particular deal. Why have they not been tempted to come on board if this is so wonderful? Why have we got some lightweight organizations who've suddenly come on board, who've got some money behind them coming from God knows where, are suddenly interested. And who gave the go-ahead for this? Under what conditions? Under what processes? This, sorry, if it smells like a rat, it probably is a rat.
Well, Mr. Cachalia, you're doing most of my job for me with all of these questions. So I think it's really necessary when we do have the Minister on that we should invite you as well, because you can take over some of the responsibility of asking these tough questions. I'm also just intrigued. We've allowed one of the probably very lucrative routes between Johannesburg and New York just recently been handed over to United Airlines, which means, South African Airlines, the new South African Airlines, may not be able to make that route profitable anymore. We don't have the Johannesburg to Paris route anymore. That's entirely Air France. So there a lot of decisions were made in the past, and I'm wondering, with the new private owners, whether any of that will be adjusted or changed, or whether they can, make a difference to, those routes being lost to us.
Well, this is the problem. We have a generalized statement here. We don't have the detail that's required. This is a state asset. There are considerable amount of assets here which are being passed into other hands. We need to understand the terms and conditions as regards routes, as regards financing, as regards debt, as regards the probity of the people involved. None of these issues have been addressed. Goodness, the nation needs to know.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for your time, Ghaleb Cachalia, who's a member of the DA